Hello everyone, welcome to Introduction to Java Programming. I am Jamal Nasir. Today we will learn loops in Java. So please do watch previous lectures in which we have already covered static methods, expression variables, string sequences, right? So you can go through playlist named as Introduction to Java Programming for previous lectures. In lecture 5, we discussed about methods, static methods. Why do we need methods? Right? If we want to make algorithm more structured, then we do need methods. Also, if we want to remove redundancy, repetition of statements, then we can use methods. Control structures. Control structure is a programming construct that affects the flow of a program's execution. So, like we have normal flow, right? This is a normal flow of any program. But if we want some change in that flow, let's say from here we want to go again here, right? Then this is a control structure, or it could be flow could be like this one. From here we are jumping towards some other code and then returning back, right? So this is control structure. So control code may include one or more statements. The for loop that we would be discussing in this lecture is an example of a looping control structure. So in this lecture, we will discuss for loop in Java. So let's suppose we have to print different println statements, right? And you can see that like there are few statements that are repeating. Okay. So one option is that might be we can create one method, right? And call this method again and again. Or another option could be that we can use for loop, which can print these statements 4 times. So here you can see we can use for loop. First line is same, Alex says, right? This one is same. Then for this loop, because we know that for this statement, we want to repeat this statement 4 times. So we are running this loop for 4 times. And then we are printing the last line. So this is a syntax of a for loop. It requires initialization, condition, or test, some sort of, or you can say that stopping criteria, and then update statement, that after the execution of one cycle, how it will update the initialized variable. Then it will go for second time, it will check if condition is true, then it will go for third time and fourth time, right? So this is a for loop. So in terms of syntax, in a for loop, for is a keyword, Java keyword. We have to initialize one variable. Here we are initializing I is equals to 20, which means that this variable I would be starting from 20, right? Then we have a test or condition that this loop should continue to work till I is less than 400. And obviously for each step we are adding some value to I, otherwise this loop will run infinite times, right? Because we wouldn't be adding some value in I. It means that in each iteration we are adding 60 value in the previous value of I, and here we are just printing something, right? So we can review again. In terms of Java, for is a keyword, int I is equals to 1, right? So it tells Java what variable to use in the loop. So I, in our case, is a variable for using loop, right? The variable is called a loop counter. Can use any name, not just I. Obviously, we can use any name, right? Can start at any value, not 1. So it could be int, let's say I is equals to 100, okay? Only valid in the loop. So it means that its scope is local. Scope is local. From this curly bracket to here, this is the scope of I. Then we have condition or test. Condition is that I should be less than is equals to 4, right? So we can test the loop counter variable against a limit, and limit uses different comparison operators, less than, equals to, greater than, and greater than or equal to, right? Increment and decrement. So we are just increasing shortcuts to increase or decrease a variable's value by 1, right? So we can say that I is equals to I plus 1, right? Or variable is equals to variable plus 1. Or it could be, in shorthand, it could be written as variable plus plus, I plus plus, right? Or I minus minus. We can decrement as well. Obviously, for loop is not a method. The for loop is a control structure, a synthetic structure that controls the execution of other statements. Example could be like shampoo hair, rinse, and repeat. Repetition over a range. Here we are taking squares of some numbers, right? So intuition is that I want to print a line for each number from 1 to 6. So for loop does exactly that. Like I can initialize from 1 till 6, then I'm just printing I, right? And then I'm squaring it with I multiplied by I. So this line or this loop will print this thing. So we have a one flow chart. You can see that, like, perform initialization once, and then we have to check, is the test true? If test is true, then we will be executing the statements that are inside the loop body, right? And after each iteration, we will checking this condition. If it's true, then obviously we will go through again and again. Otherwise, if it's false, then it will execute statement or end the statement, right? So you can see one-time initialization is this one, the one, right? This is the test condition 2, and here we are incrementing or performing the update I plus plus. This is the statement that we are executing, number 3, okay? And then when we are out of the loop, then this number 5 would be run. And output could be like, for 1, it will print 1 squared is equals to 1, right? 2 squared is equals to 4, 3 squared is equals to 9, 4 squared is equals to 16. Multi-line loop body. So in a loop, we can add multiple statements like this. There are 2 statements, right? So this curly bracket opening and closing is important. Any code or any statement inside this curly brackets is a part of this for loop, okay? So you can add any number of statements, 10, 20, it's up to your logic, inside for loop, and it will repeat all things, right? So you can see here we are just printing one line, plus, minus, 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 plus. So output would be this. But then we are trying to print this pattern or sequence in a loop, and this loop will run from 1 to 3, right? So 3 times this will be repeat, and because we are using escape character backslash, so only one backslash will be printed. That's fine. Then here only one backslash will be printed. So this is the output of one loop iteration, right? And because we are running this thing 3 times, so this is 1, this is 2, and then this is 3. So after the 3, the condition would be false, and then this for loop would be ended, and then the final statement or final system.out.println plus minus 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 plus would be printed, this one, right? Expressions for counter. So we can control counter as well, like we can define counter condition variable outside the loop, and then we can put this variable here, and then we can control our loop as well. So prints without moving to a new line. Obviously, if we are not using ln, then it will print all the stuff in single line. Counting down. So like we can start one loop from 10, and then we can say that this loop would run till I is greater than equals to 1, and then we are providing update criteria in minus. So this is basically counting down. So output would be this: t minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then blast off and the end. Nested loops. Nested loop is a loop placed inside another loop. So you can see here we have one loop and we are running another loop, right? So basically, if this is loop statement, then here we can call another statement, and obviously it will run that time. Okay, so we can call this thing. So here you can see uh, the outer loop. The first loop would be named as outer loop, and this would be the inner loop, right? So outer loop, in outer loop we are initializing I with 1, and then we are putting condition or testing statement I is less than equals to 5 and I plus plus, and then for each I we will run this loop again 10 times. Okay, so let's say if we have I is equals to 1, right, then j will be running from 1 till 10, and it means that it will be printing this static 10 times in a line. Okay, and then again for I is equals to 2, this j will run again, this inner loop will run again till 10 times, right, and it will print 10 statics. Same is the case for 3, 4, and 5, and then we can get this similar output. So the outer loop repeats 5 times, the inner one 10 times. So technically 5 into 10, we are running this print dot out dot print statement 50 times. So what is the output of the following nested for loop? You can pause this video and think what would be the output of this nested loop. So we can see here, this is outer loop, right? Outer loop. This one is inner. And we have I and j. And we have one System.out.print in which we are printing something, right? So when I is equals to 1, then it will come here, then it will run from j is equals to 1, right, and j is less than and equals to I, which means that it will print this thing. When this inner loop would be incremented to 2, then obviously this condition would be false, right, because j is not less than or equals to 1, which would be 2 in our case, right? So after this, one empty line would be printed, so only one static. Then I would be incremented to 2 and j value would be 1, so there would be one static printed here. Then j would be increased to 2, so we can print another star or static, right? Then j would be 3, and obviously this condition will not run, and new line, so control will come to the third line, and then I value would be incremented to 3, right? So it will run for 1, 2, and 3, so it will print 3 statics. And then for 4 it will print 4 statics, right? And for 5 it will print 5 statics. So output would be similar to this. So what is the output of the following nested for loops? So here, instead of printing static, we are just printing that number of I, right? And there is no ln, so it means that we would be printing in one line. But after this nested for loop, we are adding new line. So you can see 1 is printed 1 times, 2 is printed 2 times, and so on until 5 is printed 5 times by this nested loop. Common errors in terms of using nested loops, that both of the following sets of code produce infinite loops, because you can see that here I is equals to 1, I is less than equals to 5, I plus plus, and then j is equals to 1. Then I'm saying I is less than is equals to 10 and j plus plus. Obviously, when we are in j, I wouldn't be incrementing, right? Because I would be incrementing here. Okay. So it means that this loop will run infinite times. Here, what we are doing is that we are running outer loop from I is equals to 1 to I is less than equals to 5. That's fine. Then j is equals to 1 condition is right. But here we are not incrementing j, but we are incrementing I. It means that this loop will keep running, right? Will keep running infinite time. So can you write a nested loop for loops which will produce this sort of output? You can observe that we do need nested loops because there is one inner loop and one outer loop. And in inner loop, we are printing this thing firstly 5 times, then 4 times, then 3 times, then 2 times, and then 1 time. And then, but the overall control or overall printing is 5 times. So this overall thing would be controlled by the outer loop, and for each line, we can control this through inner loop. We must build complex lines of output using an outer vertical loop for each of the lines, right? And inner horizontal loops for the patterns within each line. So if we want to go by this way, then this will be controlled by inner loop. So first write the outer loop from 1 to the number of lines, so which is very simple. This is our outer loop, right? Int line is equals to 1, line is less than equals to 5, line plus plus. Now look at the line contents. Each line has a pattern, like some dots, 0 dots on the last line, then a number, right? So here we have 4 dots, then number, 3 dots, 2 dots, 1 dot, and 0 dot, right? Observation is that the number of dots is related to the line number. So you can see that for line 1, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It means that we can simply print System.out.println I, right? It will print this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But before that, we have to print 4 dots, right? So what would be the code for inner loop for int j is equals to 0, right? So we can say that j is less than 5 minus line, right? J plus plus. So first time when line is equals to 1, it means that we are running from j 0, 1, 2, and 3. So here we can simply say print, not println, only print System.out.print, right? 1 dot. So it will print 4 dots, and then this line will print 1, right? And in the next iteration, when line is equals to 2, right? So it means that 5 minus 2 is 3, and less than, because of this less than, it will only go for 1, 2, 0, 1, and 2. So 3 dots, right? When line is equals to 3, 0, and 1, it means that only 2 dots, and you can see we only require 2 dots. Similarly for 1 dot, and for the last time, and for the last iteration, we don't need any dot. Mapping loops to numbers. For count is equal to 1, count is less than equal to 5, count plus plus, system.out.print. What statement in the body would cause the loop to print 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, right? So simple, we can simply multiply with 3 and then we can add plus 1 to print these numbers. What statements in the body would cause the loop to print 2, 7, 12? So you can see that difference is 5, right, between each number. So it's easy. We are simply just count is equals to 1. We have to print 2, 7, right? So we can see count into 5 and then we can minus 3. Each time count goes up by 1, the count should go up by 5, and then we are just subtracting minus 3 from the final result. So it will give us 2, 7, 12, 17. So you can practice nested for loops. So what would be the output of this for loop? You can write in a comment what would be the output of this for loop. And if you want to modify the previous code to produce this output, then what would be the code? So this is the end of this lecture in which we discussed nested loops, for loops, right? So do practice and try to solve previous two exercises, and you can try some other exercises from different books as well. Practice makes a man perfect. If you have any question, comments, or you can share your answers by commenting YouTube video, right? And please like this video, share with your friends, and keep learning. Bye bye.